Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency market have seen a relatively large correction in light of rising tensions in the Middle East. In today's video, we're going to be discussing Bitcoin from a short-term and a macro perspective, discussing what the charts are suggesting and why the market is not as bearish as you might believe. We'll also be taking a look at pre-halving corrections in the past, current market data, and the altcoin market cap. Let's go ahead and jump into it. Okay, MegaWhale team, welcome back to the channel. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you're all having a fantastic weekend. In light of rising tensions between Israel and Iran, Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency market has taken a bit of a hit toward the downside, particularly altcoins dropping around 20 to 30%. However, the market is not as bearish as it may seem, with Bitcoin holding above its critical $60,000 level of support. In today's video, we are doing a complete short-term and macro analysis, going over things like the pre-halving corrections, the total cryptocurrency market cap, the short-term price action, the key levels of support, and even the total altcoin market cap. Before we do get into it, smash that like button, hit that comment button, and subscribe to the channel. We post daily videos of Bitcoin focusing on the facts, the data, the technical and the structural information, no hype, no BS, no emotion, pure raw TA. If that is the kind of content you are interested in, join us over on Telegram. It is the third link down below. You'll get access to charts, updates, videos, educational posts, news events, and everything you need to stay in the loop of cryptocurrency with Bitcoin and the relevant economic news. If you are interested in taking your trading to the next level, join us over on VIP. We post trading setups with exact entries, exact targets, exact stop losses, trade justification, exclusive analysis, and so much more. You'll also get access to our group chats, our general chat, our trading chart and education chat, our news, our help, our trade setup, and our daily video chat. If you're interested in access to all of that, contact me in the pinned comment of the free channel by clicking my name over here or the links over here to find out more information. Let's go ahead, guys, and dive on in. So before we get started, guys, a quick update. Of course, the markets have bled toward the downside. Bitcoin has seen a considerable correction to retest that $60,000 level in light of rising tensions between Iran and Israel. I'm not going to get into it too much today, but do note that this major global event is causing a whole bunch of fear and speculation in the market, which again drives risk asset prices downwards quite aggressively in times of crisis. So we have seen a negative reaction across the board for risk assets. However, the key levels of structural support are still intact for Bitcoin, and we're going to be discussing in today's video what that means for both the short-term and the macro price action. I will also like to note, if further escalations do occur with this global event and things do get worse, it is likely that we will see extended corrections or continued corrections toward the downside. So we do have to pay attention to developments in regards to this development in in Israel moving forward. So let's go ahead and start off with our market data. 24-hour volume is up 20%, sitting at a whopping 300 billion. Of course, we have seen a whole heap of volatility, so volume is going to increase. 24-hour liquidations sitting up 7%, sitting at a massive $945 million. This is going to be the second consecutive day of liquidations over 800 million. Of the 24-hour liquidations, we can see of the 945 million, 768 million have come from long positions and 177 million have come from short positions. If we look at yesterday's liquidations, we can see the total liquidations yesterday came in at over 800 million as well. So a brutal 2 days in the market, probably for altcoins the most intense short-term correction I have seen for altcoins since COVID-19. So altcoins have definitely copped the short end of the stick in this correction in comparison to Bitcoin, but we'll be discussing that in today's video. Moving over to the broader market, so DXY of course is continuing toward the top side. When we do see these crisis events unfold, generally the dollar does gain value, so we are seeing the DXY continuing upwards. It's going to be very interesting to see how the DXY actually opens up and moves into the upcoming week as we get new developments and news around what is happening globally. Moving over to the S&P 500, again, the markets are closed right now. It's going to be very interesting to see how they do open up. Looking at overall projections, once more, provided this $5,000 level holds as support, we are expecting every correction that does develop to be healthy macro corrections. It is only if we lose 5,000 do we expect extended corrections to retest the prior 2021 all-time high. That does mean no matter what the price does when it opens, provided 5,000 holds, we are expecting the price to eventually, whether it be on the short term or whether it be in a few weeks or months, continue back toward the upside. The same goes for the Dow Jones retesting or nearly retesting our key $38,000 level. Provided 38 to 37.7 is able to hold as support, we are expecting macro continuations upwards. If we do lose this level, we could see an extended correction back down to retest our 50 MA, which is sitting within that 2021 all-time high. So overall, guys, the markets are still good. They're still healthy on the macro. The key structural levels of support are still holding. We have just seen a massive move toward the downside, a massive shakeout, a massive liquidity grab, whatever you want to call it, in light of developing events which were not predictable or were not present in the market data and the charts just 2 days ago. So let's go ahead, guys, and jump over to Bitcoin. Like we said, we have a lot to discuss. We're going to be taking a look at the short time frame price action, discussing the key levels, what is happening, what you should be paying attention to, and what this means in terms of high time frame context. We'll be taking a look at the weekly chart, again discussing what is happening, the key levels to be paying attention to. We'll be jumping over to the macro charts, going over pre-halving price action, pre-halving corrections, what have we seen in the past and what is happening now. We'll also be taking a look at the total cryptocurrency markup on the left over here, and as well as the total altcoin markup for prior historical similarities in this pre-halving phase. So before we do get into it, a quick word from Bitget and BingX and we'll dive in. I wanted to briefly interrupt today's video to discuss the two exchanges we use on this channel, Bitget and BingX. So which exchange should you sign up to? If you look to the right hand side of the screen, you're going to see the list of differences in relation to KYC requirements and the countries these exchanges offer services to. The first link down below being the Bitget link, and the second link down below being the BingX link. No matter which link you sign up to, you're going to get up to 15% discounts on your trading fees, up to $5,000 in trading rewards, and of course, you'll get access to every single MegaWhale exclusive bonus campaign we run on these exchanges. Alongside that, Bitget and BingX are incredibly similar. They are both ranked top 10 in terms of trading volume. They both have extensive liquidity pools and market pairs offering up to 125x leverage. And most importantly, they both offer protection funds for their users to protect you against any third-party hacks. So get started now and support the channel by clicking the links below. Thanks for listening. Okay guys, let's go ahead and jump into Bitcoin. So first and foremost, last 2 days, we have seen a pretty significant crash for Bitcoin. Again, we did break down below our major uptrending support line, which has been the uptrending support line ever since the start of March, marking around 4 to 5 weeks. And we said in our videos in the last few days that if we do break down from this uptrend, we are expecting the short-term bias to flip from bullish to bearish, and we could see a move all the way down to retest these monthly opening levels at around $60,000. So we have seen that happen. Again, the driving factor behind that movement was, of course, the developing news around the Middle East, so unfortunate event that has caused the price action to drop very significantly and very quickly. However, when we look at the price from a structural perspective, the key levels of support are still being respected. And as we've said before, whilst we remain in this range, right, and this is a high time frame range between the $60,000 entrance, okay, and our 74 peak, okay, which is going to be on March 14th of 2024, okay, we are going to be moving within a horizontal consolidation on the macro chart. And provided our range low is able to hold, we are actually technically going to be in a bullish consolidation. So provided and in consideration of recent movements and recent events, yes, Bitcoin has seen a considerable move downwards, but the key levels of structural support have been respected and have held, and thus we expect support to be support until it is not. So in the last 24 hours, sure, we've seen a brutal correction. The correction has taken us to 60,000. But if we zoom out at the bigger picture, the price action and Bitcoin itself has actually not seen as brutal as a correction as what the market feels like. When we look at the correction, coupled with the way altcoins have responded, coupled with the rising threat in the Middle East in regards to the war and what that could develop into, the appearance of risk in the market is much larger based on emotions than it actually is. It appears to be much worse based on what the charts are actually suggesting. So in times like this, I always say, do not make decisions from a point of fear and do not make decisions from a point of euphoria. Remain calm, collected, and trust the data. As we've been saying the entire month, there is no need to be macro bearish unless 60K does not hold. If we break below 60,000, that is when we see a massive downside risk as we enter this huge VRPV gap from around 60,000 to potentially 52,000. So a loss of 60,000, particularly our sell side liquidity at 58 or 59,000, we are exposed to a massive downside correction to 52,000. But until we see that breakdown, Bitcoin is respecting our horizontal levels of support on the short term, and on the macro chart, we are respecting our 60K region. Bitcoin is objectively bullish. So let's go ahead now and talk about the next potential moves for Bitcoin and the key levels you need to be paying attention to. So like we just said already, the downside or the key area of support you need to be paying attention to is going to be that 60K region. No matter what happens between this range is a consolidation range, it is a chop zone. Swings up to range high and swings down to range low should be considered healthy moves. It is only no longer a healthy move when the structural levels of support end up invalidating, and that is when we'll see these continuations from the current consolidation range. So right now, if we see a breakdown of 60, we expect lower. If we see a break over 74, which is going to be our trigger point, okay, we expect a continuation higher. Everything between over here is healthy price movement. Now, like we said already, on the short term, we did see a breakdown on these trend lines, and these trend lines, these patterns within our macro consolidation are just short-term directional patterns. These do not influence the macro trajectory of the price action, just what happens between our major area of resistance and our major area of support. So let's now dive in and talk about, well, what will happen if the price action continues upwards, and what are we looking for? So for a bounce back toward the upside, we again need to see momentum flip positive. If we look at our RSI, we have a very clear downtrend on momentum over here. Those peaks equate to our peaks on the price action, which is respected or reflected by this downtrend diagonal trend line. And thus, for the price action to continue back upwards, we definitely want to see RSI travel along and retest and break through this level, which could result in a continuation to retest these highs. Again, this may take some time. It is unlikely we're going to see an immediate bounce back up to this level. It is more likely that we'll see some maybe more downward consolidation. Maybe we come back down and retest this level before we eventually retest this level in a few days. I do not expect the correction that we have seen to be immediately brought back up, considering the mass amount of emotions in the market as of right now. Emotion breeds emotion, and it takes time for the negative emotions to fade away in the market, especially with the rising risk of further developments in the current conflict between Iran and Israel. So again, on the short term, the price action is speculative. As you can see how I'm speaking, I'm not being too definitive, as again, no matter what happens in the price action, if we see extended developments, that could sway the price action in any way, because the market is moving based on emotions between a key level of support and resistance. So again, provided we hold these levels of support and resistance, this range is going to continue, and all price movement within this range should be deemed as healthy price movement. It is only if we break below, like I've been saying all month long, if we break below 60,000, that is when we are bearish, that is when we expect a correction lower. If we break above 74,000, that is when we're high time frame bullish. That is when we expect a price continuation higher. Everything between is simply just chop. So let's go ahead now and talk about pre-halving corrections. If we look at this, we do have the halving coming up in 5 days now. The halving's just literally right around the corner. Historically, we have seen corrections moving into the halving. If we look back at the 2016 halving, we can see Bitcoin actually suffered around a 29% correction moving into the halving event, as we can see over here. If we look at our prior halving all the way in 2020, we can see moving into the halving, Bitcoin saw a correction of around 18 to 19%. And if we look at the current price action moving into the halving, taking from the 74k high to that recent low we created, we have seen a 19% correction. And as we said in our video about 2 or 3 weeks ago, it is not uncommon to see pre-halving corrections, and again, provided this correction that could potentially develop, which has now developed, is able and will sustain our key structural levels of high time frame support, it will be considered a healthy developing correction, which is what we define this correction to be right now. When we're looking for macro reversals, we look for specific trigger points, we look for identification of specific triggers that indicate the trend is flipping, not just developing weakness. And at the moment, we have nothing that suggests from a technical and a historical perspective that the bull market is over. All we have seen is a correction which has taken us to retest the monthly lows. Yes, that correction has been blown out of proportion because of the developing events around Israel and Iran. Yes, due to those rising conflicts, we have seen the dollar increase in value, which has pushed risk assets down. Yes, because of that, we have seen altcoin market cap lose a significant amount of value, as altcoins are considerably more speculative and risk on in comparison to Bitcoin. So when we see these conflicts, of course, altcoins are going to drop significantly. So let's now go ahead and talk about our high time frame chart. If we're taking a look at our high time frame chart, once more we can see another retest of that $60,000 area of support. And like we said already, it is only if we lose this area of support do we run the risk of filling this gap in the price action back to 52,000. Provided we hold above that 2021 initial high, we are expecting continuations upward eventually. Again, guys, we're just going over what is likely, what the facts and the data are. I see absolutely no reason to flip bearish here until support is lost. While support remains support, I will remain bullish. If we do break below this support line and the probability shift in favor on extended correction downwards, I will be flipping bearish. At the moment, like we said, our entries for Bitcoin were at 16.5k. Anyone was watching the channel paying attention, you guys entered down at 16.5k. If you entered late, it would have been around 21,000. We are still up a considerable amount. And until we have confirmation of macro deviation and continuation into macro downtrends, there is no reason to sacrifice our amazing entry for a short-term, what would be deemed to be healthy correction as of what the price action is doing right now. Of course, you have to make up your own mind based on your own risk tolerance and own financial position, but personally, I see absolutely no reason to do that for myself as of right now. Moving over, guys, to take a look at the total cryptocurrency market cap, we can see another reason why the market is still actually objectively bullish is because the total cryptocurrency market cap has retested and bounced from our major dead cat bounce high point of the prior bull market. And one of the key trigger points we were discussing for us to enter a macro downtrend a few weeks ago was if we were to break back below this level, the market will be in a considerable position of risk. If we were to break below this major $2 trillion-ish level of support, we would then see a potential correction all the way back down to this 1.6 trillion level, deleting the macro uptrend Bitcoin has been developing and continuing in. That would result in a correction sub 60,000 and will result in a catastrophic correction for altcoins and Bitcoin alike. So we definitely would like to remain above this level, and we can see that we have now retested this level as support, and so far, while this area remains at support, we are expecting that continuation back to retest these highs eventually, provided our support holds. If we lose this support level, that is going to be a major warning sign and major sign of weakness. Based on historical data, we never really see a loss of that dotted trend line when we break above it. So we can show you guys on the Bitcoin market cap over here, the dotted trend line is a representation of that same level we were just discussing on the total market cap, which is that dead cat bounce high level. If we look at that dead cat bounce high level, that dotted trend line, when we break above that dotted trend line, Bitcoin never comes back down to retest it. So only breakdown of that dotted trend line would invalidate the upcoming bull market. So theoretically, Bitcoin could drop toward that dotted trend line and the market on a macro, on a monthly scale, would still be bullish. But on a short term, on the weekly scale, of course, we would see some considerable downward movement before that would to occur. And the price action would be moving down considerable if that would actually occur. So as of right now, provided this area holds of support, we do expect continuations toward the upside. Moving over to the altcoin market cap, guys, we can see the altcoin market cap has suffered around a 30% correction. And this wouldn't be the first time we've seen a 30% correction. If we look at where the altcoin market cap actually is right now, we need to go ahead and bring up the Brave New Coin Liquid Index on the left over here so we can apply some context to where the price action is in regards to where Bitcoin is. We can see that the altcoin market cap generally, we see this red box right over here, and we look at Bitcoin on the left over here, we can see as Bitcoin breaks through or is breaking through that prior high, the altcoin market cap is in this red zone just underneath that dead cat bounce high. So looking at the prior cycle, looking at the current cycle, we can say the same thing over here. As we are retesting that prior all-time high, the altcoin market cap is in this red zone underneath the dead cat bounce high of the prior cycle. We can see exactly the same pattern playing out. And what we have seen in both instances prior to Bitcoin officially breaking through that level on the monthly is that altcoins have seen a considerable correction within that zone. Back in 2021, we saw a correction of 31% on the altcoin market cap before we eventually saw a break of that dotted trend line, or should I say the horizontal trend line, before that parabolic phase of the altcoins. This is the parabolic phase of the altcoins above this orange trend line. If we look at the current cycle, we can see that altcoins have now seen a 29% correction just underneath that solid trend line before the parabolic phase for altcoins. So we are actually seeing history repeat to some degree. We are seeing these pre-halving corrections. We are seeing these large corrections of altcoins at the same spot of which we saw these develop in prior cycles. So all of these facts, all these pieces of data, the total cryptocurrency market cap at support, altcoin market seeing a 30% correction as we saw in prior cycles, okay? Bitcoin on the short term, maintaining above $60,000 even in light of these catastrophic global events. Maintaining above that prior first 2021 high over here at the 60K level. Looking at the monthly chart from a technical perspective, we are seeing rejections from the high long moving average, exactly what we have seen before. All the validations for us to be in a bull run are still intact above 48K, and from a technical perspective, while the price action remains above the high short and low short moving average and EMA on the pi cycle. So everything is telling us the markets are still in a macro uptrend. The markets are still bullish. In fact, everything we are seeing now has happened in the past. The biggest question is, will Bitcoin deviate from the current trajectory which is it on, which is still going into a macro uptrend, still going to a parabolic phase, or will it create a new path that we have not seen before as a consequence of these developing events? And my answer is, I think it's unlikely we create a new path. If I look at what is driving the risk asset market from behind the scenes, it's the potential decreasing interest rates later in the year, which is pushing systematic risk down on the macro. It is likely we continue up on the higher time frame. However, this short-term event, this short-term issue we're seeing could develop into a larger problem, and if that does, that could potentially influence the markets. But as of right now, this correction has been a healthy correction. It has been, again, exacerbated by the fact of the speed of the correction. The market was very unprepared for it, right? I'll admit, I didn't expect us to go into a new global conflict over the weekend. Sure, $60,000 was always a possibility. It was a major area of support. But I didn't think we were going to hit that based on Iran and Israel going and throwing missiles at each other. So things like this happen in the market sometimes, and this is why it's always important to prepare and manage your risk, right? If you're just sitting there without stop losses, you're a fool. If you're sitting there with massive amount of leverage, with very, very tight liquidation prices, with way too much money exposed, you're an absolute fool. At the end of the day, guys, if you do not manage risk correctly and you have not lost your money yet, it is only a matter of time until you do. Because what defines you from being a successful trader and a profitable trader and unprofitable is simply your risk management. So focus on the facts, focus on the charts, understand that right now, Yes, Bitcoin looks brutal. Yes, we've seen a correction, but support is support until it is not. In the short term, we could see some more slow bleed off back down to retest this levels. Ideally, I would actually like to see it create a solid base of support again down at 60 before we continue back upwards, potentially in the next week. And if we do break that RSI trend line, that is the trigger point I am looking for the short term to turn bullish again. Until then, we are still bleeding down into that 60k region. Thank you for watching. Have a fantastic rest of your day, and we'll catch you guys in tomorrow's video. Cheers.